Shalom, shalom, Baruch Hashem. Hello to everybody out there. This is none other than Archbishop Dr. Kifa Ben Israel, live, in charge, and alive. Welcome to our second edition of Prophecy Talk, a daily show that we are just starting that we're doing as far as information is concerned and in the world, and also talking about events that will help us to improve on our understanding of prophecy and the things of prophecy. I'm so excited and elated to be here on Facebook Live, on YouTube Live, Periscope, Twitter, and my new project, which is called Twix. So excited to be here and so excited to be counted amongst the living and alive in this platform. Today on the counter, we said that we want to talk about Black Lives Matter. We want to talk about the role of Black Lives Matter in the world, period. And then we want to talk about COVID-19. Will the church survive? Will the church survive through COVID-19? And some other topics that we're going to be hitting on, some subnotes and footnotes and so on like that. I'm not a journalist. I'm a preacher, archbishop, chief apostle. So everything that I talk about is from the perspective of spirituality. There's nothing that I claim more than my walk with the Most High, my walk with Messiah, Mashiach. In the Hebrew, we say Mashiach, Messiah. Nothing more important than that. That's terrible right there to see me yawning. But anyway, that's the good thing about live TV. You can't hide nothing. Everything is just pretty much what it is. Let's start talking about Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter, organization that was started during the Trayvon Martin situation. Some of you guys are not familiar with the Trayvon Martin situation, and I'm sure you are. He was killed by a man named Zimmerman, pulling out a Arizona iced tea and a bag of Skittles. George Zimmerman was a community watch person at the time who felt the need, that thought he was pulling out a gun or thought that he was trying to murder someone, and he shot and killed Trayvon Martin. This is what started the drive for this organization called Black Lives Matter. Then there was a situation in Ferguson, Missouri, where a young man had his hands up and he shot, and that's where you get the statement and the phrase in some of these rallies and the rallying cry where people say, hands up, don't shoot. We can go into a whole lot of the different variables of the origins of Black Lives Matter, but Black Lives Matter was started by three people, three women. Two of them I know that identify as what they call queer. I'm not really sure as to the definition of queer altogether. I've had the pleasure of working in the public eye, here in the state of Oregon. I'm located in Portland, Oregon. So I've had extensive explorations into the alternative lifestyles, or what we call the LGBTQ lifestyles, or organization, if you will. So I've had much exposure and much training into that, because most of the jobs and the sensitive jobs that I've worked, being a social worker and case manager for a veterans organization and for a homeless organization, we've had to have extensive training into that area, or what people would call sensitivity training into those areas pertaining to those different types of ventures. But nevertheless, two of them have identified, two of the original founders of the Black Lives Matter have identified as being queer, but they stood up all those years back, and I don't know if anybody remembers back in those days. I think it was like 2012, 2013 or so, and they were harassed, at the time by the Republican Party as being a terrorist group. There are instances of today where they're still recognized as that, but with the events of George Floyd, the murder of George Floyd on national television, go figure that, then Black Lives Matter was pushed out to the forefront again. And this time they really stood out and hit communities and folks all over the place, and their message was heard loud and clear. Now, a lot of us in the Afro community, because I use the phrase Afro because I really don't like using the phrase black too much, even though we've gotten used to saying black. Black is not really a color. It's a state of mind, a mood. It can be defined in a positive light, or it can be defined in a negative light. But either way it go, I don't like using the terminology black for a race or a culture of people. So I like to say the Afrocentric people. Some of the Afrocentric people have adopted the pure message of the Black Lives Matter. And I myself am a very big proponent. In other words, I agree with the message of Black Lives Matter. Totally agree with it, because for many, many years, being that I had identified as a Hebrew Israelite, and let me explain myself when I say that. I identify as a Hebrew Israelite in my culture, but I don't identify as anything when it comes down to my faith or religion. I don't even believe in religion. I believe that religion is a ploy and a tactic of man to control spirituality. So I don't identify with anyone or anything that claims to be religious or religion. But I do claim my heritage and my roots, which would be that of a Hebrew Israelite. Most of the Afro people in America that are considered to be that word Negro have been identified, with some type of ancestry, if you will, with the Hebrew Israelite, and in particular, the tribe of Judah, the tribe of Yehuda, Judah. Now, not all black people are Hebrew Israelites. Not all Afrocentric minded folks identify in that manner, because you had many different risings of Afro people, from the Chaldeans all the way to the Egyptians, etc., etc. So many different forms of that. So we see that is prevalent, okay? And in the Afro community here in 2020, because in the Hebrew calendar, in the Hebrew prophetic calendar, is listed a little bit different. We are considered to be in the year of 5780. 2020 is the marking of the Gregorian calendar that we actually go by on this day, on this particular circumstantial thing that we are dealing with, 2020. And what we see is the emergence of the Black Lives Matter. Well, what I want to talk about pertaining to the Black Lives Matter is that there's a lot of spiritual people, a lot of church folks that have turned a deaf ear towards the Black Lives Matter only because of the origin of them, and because They were started by three different people that identify with the alternative lifestyle. Um, I've heard, and I'm pretty sure you've heard this also, a lot of people have said that the message of the Black Lives Matter has been hijacked by transgender people, homosexual people, and their intention the whole time was to drive the message of the alternative lifestyle. That's the gist of it. Okay, we could get a little bit more technical if we wanted to, but that's the gist of it, is that people are saying that the message is being hijacked. It was originally about the oppression of black men. They had been shot and killed. Now we see black women going through this essential circumstance and situation. They say that the message has been hijacked. And I say to everyone out there on this platform that I'm blessed to have, that the message was never hijacked. It was never a hidden message. If you remember the movie Spike Lee's Malcolm X, there was a part in the movie where the young man met Malcolm X in the diner or whatever you want to call it that they always ate at, and he was amazed at what Brother Malcolm had done when he went to the police station to get one of the brothers out of jail. And he looked and he said he ain't never seen no Negro or no black man with so much power. And Malcolm X replied to him and said, well, excuse me, he also said that he wanted to join the Muslims and so on like that because of what he had saw. And Malcolm X replied to him and said, always do your research, know what you're getting yourself into before you say you want to join. And then he told the young man not to give up so easily. Of course, he became a part of the Nation of Islam. Now, you got to realize in most of the Hollywood movies, they like to paraphrase, ad-lib, put in different things and so on like that. So we don't know if that actually happened that way or not. We just know that that was a depiction that Spike Lee had put into that movie, possibly to describe the heartbeat and the pulse of that era. But nevertheless, when you join something such as a movement, the Nation of Islam, the Fruit of Islam, Black Lives Matter, NAACP, even some of the ministerial groups as far as the World Apostolic Council, Church of God in Christ, all the different groups, organizations, denominations, etc., that you can join, there's always got to be a measure of research done by you, the individual, as to what these people are talking about. What is the message that's being portrayed? Do you want to be portrayed with the message that some of these people are propagating and putting out there? What is the deal? Well, I say to a lot of people with Black Lives Matter, they never hid their agenda from the get-go. They never hid their agenda. They were very clear as to what they stood for. And it's always been clear to me, maybe not to some people, but it's always been very clear to me that when they said Black Lives Matter, they meant black trans lives, black homophobic lives, black homosexual lives. They just literally mean Black Lives Matter. And then a lot of people came back with a whole bunch of feedback and said, oh, well, it's not about black lives, it's all lives matter. Well, we get that. We get that. But for 2,000 plus years, black lives didn't matter. And regardless of the heritage and culture of the Afro life that we have been talking about for umpteen years, it did not matter, and it showed through the killings and the murders through police, and not only through police, but through many different forms, because George Zimmerman was not a police officer. He was a community watch person, if you will. Ahmaud Arbery in Georgia was killed by the same type of people. that claim to be community watch, if you will, that just plain out and out murdered him on television. It went viral. I don't think there would have been an arrest if there would have never been a videotape to show the injustice and impoverishedness of the circumstances, situations. Now, I've watched several different people that try to come up with these statistics, if you will, about black on black crime opposed to what happens with the police and et cetera, et cetera. And in 2020, July the 6th, I hope everybody had a great weekend. On July the 6th, we're still having this conversation about police brutality, this conversation about racism, open racism in our society. And the church has been very silent about it. Black Lives Matter has really stood up and rose to the occasion to defend the rights of the families that have been publicly murdered, even those circumstances and situations that have not been publicized. It was said that George Floyd was exalted as an example of Afro-America, and that is further from the truth. I've never seen that. If anybody can tell me and show me an article or clip where George Floyd was being exalted as the example of our community and culture, please send it to me, because I have never seen that. Thus, for those of the people that are watching and listening to me, we have never, as a culture and as a community, ever uplifted George Floyd. But what we did do is we banded together because he was murdered on national television. It went viral. You couldn't avoid it. No matter what you tried to do, you couldn't avoid the circumstance or the situation because it went viral. It's on national TV. Now, I'm not saying that all white folks are phony and fake. That's the furthest thing that I would say. I would never say that. But I do know one thing, that there was a lot of white folks that felt sorry when they saw this turn of events on national television. So you had to respond to it, and you had to give the right, appropriate response to it, because depending on what you said was going to determine on who you are. And we were going to find out if you were legitimate or if you were just somebody that were playing on the pity of black people or whatever the case may be. But, of course, now it has resulted in many people going out here in the streets and protests. And now the message itself has reached beyond the murder of George Floyd into other murders and other circumstances and situations. And I say that we're not going to see any change until we change it with the Constitution and the rights of the 13th Amendment. If you don't change that, then you're not going to change anything, because according to the 13th Amendment, it gives private prisons and all these other different places gives them the ability to actually enact slavery still. And we don't really hear a lot of people talking about that because we're so busy shouting and screaming that we're not reading. And we're not checking out the fine line, the fine print, if you will, of what's really going on. Now, I heard a preacher just last night when I was watching one of the networks that I do watch and keep up with. I was looking at a statement, and he was saying that we become too black and not Christian enough. Okay? Not Christian enough. That's interesting to me, to make a statement that says we're not Christian enough. Woo-wee. That's a deep statement, because being a Christian is what's got us in this trouble that we're in the first place. I mean, I could go into a big giant history of how the Christian church or the Christian religion itself oppressed and dummied down a lot of different things and killed Hebrews during the Crusades to further their agenda of their hijacked faith and belief called Christianity. I could go there. And I think a lot of you guys could go there also, because if you do Google searches on it and all of this information that we have available to us today, we see and we find that the face of Christianity and the face of many different things have put themselves in a place of persecution that doesn't exist. Black Lives Matter had the guts to stand up and talk about a lot of stuff. I just really commend them for their tremendous stance. They're a non-spiritual group started by people from an alternative lifestyle. Where was the black church during all these during all these situations of injustice? Well, a lot of the black churches were paid off. A lot of them didn't speak up. They spoke about a white Jesus and pushed the propaganda of what the consensus white America has seen or actually portrayed the black church to be. And that is a bunch of jumping and hollering, shouting people that speak in tongues and that prophesy. I like to use the terminology prophesy. And they were entertained by us. But here comes some people that, hashtag call themselves Black Lives Matter. And they were making some real noise. They were really creating a lot of stir that has really transcended itself into the movement that we're seeing now with the protests. Now, God knows we don't admonish rioting and looting in any type of way, no matter who's doing it. I don't care if they're coming from the Black Lives Matter group or they're coming from the White Supremacy group, undercover cops, whoever they may be, because we're not even really going there as to who it is that actually looted and rioted these different neighborhoods, because I think a lot of people forget about when Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, the riots that happened on that situation and the circumstances in Watts and different places in California. If we study our history, we find out that nothing actually is anything new. This is all recycled circumstances and situations that we have dealt with before. But now it's a little bit different because the voices that are getting involved are of great notoriety and fame and circumstantial situations. I mean, if people from all over are popping up. Jamie Foxx, Kevin Hart, Tiffany Haddish, different people of notoriety, T.I., Killer Mike. But of course, some of these people were already involved in the advancement and the movement of the oppression of Afro people. And I could get into that all morning long and talk to you about stuff like that and really make a lot of sense with it. But that's not the point that I'm trying to drive across, or the point that I'm talking about on this edition of this show, because it's called Prophecy Talk. So what I'm saying to you is definitely prophecy. It's already been written, foretold, and we're just relaying and confirming with the inevitable that it's happening in the earth realm through the spirit realm. So what I'm saying to you is that the representatives of the kingdom of God, see, in the Hebrew, we like to say the phrase, his name, Yahuwah, but those that represent that kingdom have truly been somewhat quiet. Some people have been talking. Some people have not been talking. But this is the reason why I believe a lot of them have been quiet. A lot of them have really been vocal about Black Lives Matter. And that's because of the origin of Black Lives Matter, because they were founded by 3 young ladies, or as in their identification, whatever that may be. And 2 of them, of course, were openly identified as queer. And we're just so down on that. The Christian church is so down on abortion and all different things. That's one of the reasons why the evangelical side of the Christianity has sided with the current president, Donald Trump, because he's taken an open stance against abortion and the homosexual lifestyle and all these other things. That's where he gets his steam from in his base, if you will, for what he does. Okay. And the problem that those of us that are super spiritual, that are prophetic, problem we got with the church right now, ones that profess and claim to have Christ in their life, and they say that they're bringing all this uh, all this stuff, okay, is because of the simple fact that no one is speaking Bible. No one is speaking the atrocity of Revelation 13, which speaks of the two beasts that have been given power by the dragon, and that we will know this beast by the number of man, which is 666. Right? You see a lot of these movies talking about it, but they don't give an in-depthness as to what it really is or what it really means. Or the in First John, the second chapter, starting at the 18th verse, where it talks about the rise of the anti-messiahs, the antichrist that will come into the earth, that are already here, in the earth realm, and the diabolical plan and the plot that's coming up. And then we want to talk about Black Lives Matter. We want to accuse and we want to persecute these young people for going out here protesting and speaking their mind. I personally commend those people for going out there, making a stand, and talking about the uncomfortable situations that most people don't want to talk about. The church, a prophetic church, should have been talking about this stuff a long time ago. We stay in our safe corners and we say we're there to win souls, but yet the souls that we're trying to win have more information about our institutions than what we have, because we're standing in the pillar of lies and circumstances and situations. But then the first thing we want to do is bring up the fact that Black Lives Matter was started by three people of the alternative lifestyle, three persons of the alternative lifestyle. Instead of looking at the results that are happening now, you see the Confederate flags coming down and the statues being rectored in various parts of the country. We're not looking at the result, but then some people are looking at the results of it and saying negative things about these results, and saying that, oh, this is history, and et cetera, et cetera. But whose history? Whose history? Myself, as being a brown-skinned man, an Afro man, it's not definitely a part of my history that I want to remember. I don't know about you, but I don't want to remember Thomas Jefferson with his racist self. I don't want to remember Robert E. Lee with his rebellious racist self. The first act of known terrorism, which was the Confederate States. Can sit there and be proud of their history all you want to, but they promoted and propagated slavery at that time. And then all of a sudden, 1863, Abraham Lincoln came up with the military action of the Emancipation Proclamation. And this brought about a change into society and culture it took almost 2 years to get to the slaves about. And on June 19th in 1865, it finally reached the last colony of slaves in the state of Texas. And that's where we get the holiday Juneteenth from, that is just now being recognized by white and black folks alike. Or, people ain't doing their history. We want to be so super spiritual and all these other things that we're seeing, but nobody talked about those days of history, point of interest. It's not even Juneteenth is not even a national holiday. And only until the uprising of the Black Lives Matter and the murder of George Floyd on national television, now we're making such an impact about Juneteenth or June 19th, 1865. Now you see all kind of articles on social media platforms from Twitter to Facebook about this historical event. And now some people are actually bringing out the fact of the 13th Amendment. They're actually talking about it now. We're talking. I think it's really interesting, and I'm going to take a jab at some of these preachers that say, oh, the kingdom of God is so different. The principles of the kingdom of God are different. That's what white America used to tell us during slavery. Used to tell us that we're supposed to listen to our masters, and whatever the masters do, that it's the will of God that we follow the masters. Nobody was allowed to read or write or to go back and to study with this stuff. Yeah. I mean, I've been celebrating Juneteenth forever. So as long as I can remember, I guess I have to praise the people around me because my mother died when I was 11 years old. So I have to praise the people around me that did not let me lose my blackness as to celebrating Juneteenth and all the different points of history. Watch night, which was a very important part of the Afro culture and our history. So I was fortunate because I kept driving. You know, I always was not ashamed of my blackness. Was not ashamed of my beard, my nose, and my identification as a Hebrew Israelite and as a black man. Period. I never lost that. I was very fortunate. Some people are just now coming to the realization of their identity as to who they are. And I'm not knocking that. It's a great thing that we're seeing. But the problem that I'm going to talk about is that the fact that we still think that we're free in this country. We still think that we have so much immunities and freedoms and so on like that, and we don't. We've been handed a little leaven, and because we've been handed a little leaven, now we're jumping up and down about it. Malcolm X said this, and it's so true. He said the white man will give you little ceremonious victories or little celebratory circumstances just to fend you off from the big circumstances and have you dangling like a fish on a rod and have you jumping up and down saying, oh, we's did it. We's made it. We's come to a long way. We've seen it all. Heck, that's the cry that you see a lot of people saying now is that, oh, we had an African American president, Barack Obama. Things have changed. I wish I could agree with that. I totally don't agree with that. Totally disagree with that because, yeah, they put him in there. They put him in there. For the sake of conspiracy, I won't go into the they. But yeah, they put him in there. Some of y'all will catch on to what I'm saying if you're watching this. They put him in there. Did it do us any favors as Black America? No. As a matter of fact, Republican, Democrat, Tea Party, whoever, I've never heard any of them say that they have a agenda for Black America. I've always heard them talk about Latino. I've heard them talk about the Mexican Americans, the natives, which they deserve because this was native land before the British colonies came over here and stole it from them. So, never heard anything on the agenda of Black America. Never heard anybody say that we're going to actually have bills that are going to direct themselves towards Black America. Now, you want to get racist or you want to get biased. There was a criminal reform bill that was passed not too long ago, which I thought was targeted to Afro America because when you look at statistics, if you will, you see the majority of people in prisons and jail and so on like that, that of descent of African descent and Latino, et cetera, et cetera. So they gave us this little weak crime bill that was passed by the president by 45, and it's supposed to do so much. Now, mind you, it's probably gotten some people out of prison, and I'm not knocking that. It's an awesome type of situation and circumstance, because when people have been in prison unjustly, yeah, that needs to be rectified and needs to be pulled up and pulled out. But let's examine the entire criminal justice system. Heck, for that matter, let's examine the entire system, period, from the political system all the way down to the religious system. And regardless of whether people want to really like what I'm saying or getting ready to say, it's a true fact that religion and politics have played a major role with each other in the demise and the demeanoring of Afro-minded people, so much so to the point where some people of Afro descent don't want to be Afro anymore. They want to try to act like they're like our oppressors, white folks. And see, this is where I got to say, I know that all white folks are not the same, and that all white folks don't hate black folks, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, I get that. But let's get the uncomfortable conversation going, and let's talk about the fact that it's there. The stigmatism of racism is there. And here it is, Black Lives Matter points it out and gets the biggest push that there is behind it. Well, one of the reasons why such a push for Black Lives Matter is because of their message and who the message is coming from. They never hid the fact that they're supportive of transgenders and homosexual lives. They never hid that fact, people. If you're really watching the news and you're understanding a lot of stuff, they never hid that fact. So for you to sit here and say, oh, I didn't know that's what they stood for, I didn't know that's what they did, then you ain't doing your research. You're not doing what Malcolm X told that young man in the dino to do, is investigate, research what you're standing with before you decide you want to join something. I've always said that I support the message of Black Lives Matter, and I really get it, and I appreciate them standing for my culture. I get it. But I've never joined the organization myself because I cannot, nor the spirituality in me will allow myself to condone the alternative lifestyle as something of a movement to compare to the Black lives, okay? And it's just not something that it's not something that I would just jump up and down about. Not something I would jump up and down about. It's not my push. It's not my fight. My fight is the fight of truth in the Word and the Bible. I'm fighting preachers that don't want to tell truth, that want to walk around here, don't want to stand in any type of truth whatsoever, and continue to lie to people and the masses about the message of Messiah. Everybody claims Christianity, but nobody claims the responsibility of Christians. Christians have murdered and have atrocized people for umpteen years, and nobody wants to talk about that. We want to hide behind the cross and say, to God be the glory. You know, they say that quite often. They say that quite a bit. To God be the glory and all this other stuff. I'm not knocking nobody. I'm not trying to put anybody out there. But one thing about this show, about Prophecy Talks, is that we're going to talk real. And we're going to talk about the coming things of circumstances. There may be some times where I may actually get some people to share the stage or share the platform with me so we can talk about this and see if we can make some sense about this. See if we can make some sense about all this stuff. And it's incredible. What we ought to be doing is that we should be redirecting people in the Word to truth, instead of focusing on an organization that has openly said that they support the alternative lifestyle, but they're making noise and headways where, again, the prophetic church, if there's any such thing, is not making any noise at all. We want to sit there and talk about there's no race in the Bible. Man, there's race all in the Bible. Heck, Messiah dealt with racism firsthand when they sat there and said, what good thing could come from Nazareth? What do you think they were talking about? He was a dark-skinned Hebrew. They were sitting up there saying, how can a dark-skinned Hebrew be the Son of God? And as time has went forth, we've seen these atrocious pictures and paintings of a stringy-haired, blue-eyed Jesus that doesn't exist. And we in the church don't want to talk about it. In the church, we've omitted that because we're looking at our salvation. How can you talk about salvation when you're still in bondage? How can you even think about going there or even pushing over to that idea when we're still in systematic racism and in bondage? On the spiritual level, we're in bondage because we've embraced the teachings of oppressors of our ancestors, and we've propagated it and carried it over through time. How do we do that? Which brings us to the other point that I wanted to talk about on this video and this show today. And that is the emergence of COVID-19. Wow. Churches being shut down. It's amazing to me how a lot of people get into the prophetic churches and Christian churches, and they say, "Oh Lord, shut them down and shut the mouth of the naysayer." And what did the Most High do? He allowed the churches doors to be shut, and now you guys have to use technology and all these other different streamings to get your messages out. And the first thing you want to say is that it's an attack on the church. I've heard this one so many times. How in the world is the church being attacked when they've attacked people? When they have attacked the mere safety and the spearheadness of truth and the sanctity of the power of the kingdom. We're in the kingdom age right now. We're no longer in the church age, but the church is being attacked. I find it very hilarious and comical when I hear people saying the church is being attacked when the church has tried to keep the identity of the true and living Hebrews hidden for so many years, because the church is being attacked. The church is being attacked, but they've done everything they can to prophetically disevaluate the true prophets that have risen over time. I mean, over on some of the platforms that I use in Twitter, etc., I've met some tremendous Hebrew prophets that are speaking truth, but they've been shut by the mainstream church, if you will, or Christianity, because they don't want to hear the message of truth that's coming out of these people's mouths, that you've been taught a lie. And that lie has been propagated so bad that now you really don't have any excuse as to why this is happening, outside of the fact that you're part of the system. The Bible, in Revelation, it tells us to come out of her, the great whore Babylon, come out of her world systems. That's what we're seeing in hindsight, is the world systems and the propagandas of others. We are in the end times. Whether you want to call this the last of days or not is really not my concern. It's not really a big deal to me. But what we are into is the end time. It plainly tells us in 1 Timothy, the 4th chapter, it says that men would not endure sound doctrine, sound teaching. They would be boasters and braggers, lovers of themselves, not being obedient to parents. All these things are now. We are living in that circumstance, that situation right now. How do we do it? How do we solve that problem? We have to stand firm on truth. Those that worship him will worship him in spirit and in truth. That means teeing off people that you love, folks that are close by to you. They're going to see the world very different than you, because you've been awakened to truth. You've been awakened to the fact that COVID-19 shut your house down. And because COVID-19 shut you down, y'all want to say this is an attack on the church. Man, come on, y'all. Really? Seriously? An attack on the church when the church has attacked innocent people that have truth on their lips and called them mentally incapacitated and said that they're insane, that they got problems, they're demonistic, they're satanistic because they don't believe in the propaganda of Christianity. Now all of a sudden they're the devil. Wow. Do your research. Check your history. Check your history, then you're going to find out that religion was part of race control. And it still is part of race control. Because you don't have a mind of your own. You got to watch what you say. They're not speaking against Jesus. Not the blue-eyed, stringy-haired Jesus. Don't you do that. No. That's not a good thing to do. But it's the right thing to do. The Bible tells us in Daniel 10 and 6 and in Revelation, the first chapter and verses 14 and 15, it plainly talks about Messiah and his identity, his physical stature. It said he had hair like wool. It said he had eyes like fire, skin like burnished bronze. He was brown skinned. He was an Afro man. You know, some people might get smart and say, where's the word Afro at? You know, good well, you're not going to find the word Afro because we came up with this word as to improve our circumstance and situation, so we did not want to be called Negro. So we came up with the word Afro to make us proud of who we are and the stance that we stand in. And those of you that are of Afro descent, you should be standing proud and just jumping up and saying, you know what, I'm an Afro-centric person. Whether you're an American Egyptian, whether you are of the descent of Iraq and Iran, Afro, all the way. Afrocentric. That's what you are, Afrocentric. But yeah, we're in the middle of a pandemic still in the world. Of course, the United States leads the charge on disobedient people and deaths and all this other stuff. But are they really deaths? Can we attest to finding all this stuff that's pinned on COVID-19? Or is this a ploy by higher powers to get us to see and escalate this pandemic? I believe there's a real pandemic. Don't get me wrong. And I believe COVID-19 is very real because I know some people personally that have suffered through COVID-19. A few of them didn't make it through. So it's a real circumstance and situation, but are we being systematically taken out? Are we one by one being plucked and the church itself being used again for propaganda? Being an apostle, I don't sign on to religious propaganda. And I don't sign on to stuff that I know does not articulate the spirituality of Messiah. I don't sign on to none of that crap. What I do sign on is the truth and the resurrection of truth. And that's one of the reasons why the Most High has given me and driven me in my spirit to come on with a Monday through Thursday show called Prophecy Talks. We're going to be talking about some very uncomfortable circumstances and situations that's going to really hurt the mind of believers all over the world, because we're going to start having guests. Some of them will agree with me, some of them won't. But we're going to give them that platform to be able to say what it is that's on their mind. And I'm going to give them what thus saith Yahuwah. That's what I'm going to do. This is the beginning, Monday, July the 6th, 2020. I am the Archbishop, Dr. Kifa Ben Israel, and I'm on here standing for truth. And I'm on here to talk about truth. And I'm so glad that you're with me. I'm so glad you didn't think it robbery of your day to come in and talk with me, because we're just talking about uncomfortable topics, uncomfortable situations. But guess what? Our work is not financed by any government program or anything like that. We don't get any grants or whatever. So that means we need your help financially to continue to reach all these platforms, because the platforms that we're not on them for free. So we want you to donate and help us invest into the cause of Kingdom Building Institute and ministries and our platform that we're standing on. Invest in us. Go to the Cash app, hit the $, type in Chief Apostle Kepha. Kepha is spelled Kepha. Go there and invest in us financially. And you can go to the PayPal extreme, paypal.me/capital K, capital I, SREAL. Go and help us out as we try to make this platform stick. We're trying to make this thing stick. So we're going to be on here from Monday through Thursday. That means you get a chance to see my face all over the place, talking about the uncomfortable circumstances and situations that we're dealing with in today. We're going to be talking about all kinds of stuff. It's going to make you feel so uncomfortable. Some of you are going to be jumping up and down like, oh my goodness, he's talking about stuff that I don't have the guts to talk about. That's right. And then we're going to tie it all prophetically, biblically, and soundly as to bringing some answers and some clarifications to all of these things, and what it means and what it doesn't mean, and where it should be and where it's got to be. I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. I'm a proud Afro man who identifies in the culture of the Hebrew Israelite. Very proud of that. My faith is the Bible. My belief is truth. What about you? For a long time, we was like, oh, we're not going to associate ourselves with them Hebrew Israelite people. You don't have to associate yourself with anybody. You are who you are. You must embrace your identity and the truthness of your identity, your blackness. I don't care if you was born what they call half-breed. If you would get a black daddy and a white mama, or a black mama and a white daddy, whatever, you ain't have nothing to do with that, because that's just something that your parents genetically produced. But guess what? Embrace your blackness, because there's a rich culture and a rich heritage in you being an Afrocentric person. Embrace it. Let's learn more about our history. Let's bring out the king or the queenness in you. Let's bring out the prophetic wonder, the prophetic power of your identity. Let's bring out that prophetic power. One of my friends that I just recently met, Dr. Theron Williams in Indiana, of all places, in Indianapolis, Indiana. He has a book that I'm so intrigued by that I'm going to throw out there to some of y'all. It's called The Bible is Black History. The Bible is Black History. Look up Dr. Theron Williams. I'm going to probably come back tomorrow with a little bit more information on how to look up some of his stuff, but he's such a great friend. We shared a platform together through my other great friend, Moray William Brown in Georgia, Fayetteville, Georgia. Boom Church, another organization, a group of people of Hebrew Israelites and et cetera, that have embraced their oneness and blackness through spirituality and the prophetic meanings. And we like to go into historical facts. But Dr. Theron Williams has that book that I'm so excited about. The Bible is Black History. And I definitely promote it and promote him and his efforts to try to educate us of the history of the Afro culture through the Bible. It's something a lot of people don't like to talk about or like to bring up in its totality of reality. But these are some things that we're going to be bringing out more so. I'm going to be very, very visible. So I need your financial help. I want y'all to go out there, give. Help us out so we can get this message to the right people and stand on a stance. One of my favorite songs, if I had an intro, would be the song by Public Enemy that was done so many years ago. Fight the power. We got to fight the power that's be. Fight the power. Y'all don't like that. Fight the power. We're in a race and a war against injustice. We're in a race and a war against lies. Truth has come. Prophecy talk has been emerged. and we're here to stand on that standard. Want to always recognize our administrator, our head administrator, who works so hard on making the production of our flyers and the different announcements on our ministry page, which is on Facebook and all the other avenues that we have. Miss Heather Harris, who is watching right now, along with all of you, as the emergence of the Archbishop has come about. I just feel like my help is coming on. That my help is here. And I feel really good about where we're at. We have a prophecy class. If you're on my Facebook pages and all these other places, then you know that we have a master class of prophecy. You have to contact us on the ministry page. Myself or either Heather will get back with you as far as the status and where you can go with us on that and what you can get. We charge $150 for a 6-month course, which is unheard of because it's very cheap to come in and to learn prophetically your identity and the purpose of you prophetically. It's unheard of. Totally unheard of. But this is unheard of too. Prophecy Talks. Thank you for coming on with me on this morning. Join me on this platform every morning, Monday through Thursday. We're going to be on this platform. We're going to be talking truth, and we're going to be bringing out some things, and we're going to be making some things happen. So for all of you out there, get ready for controversy. Get ready for prophecy. Get ready to be dubbed. We're about to bring people into accountability, and we're going to do it in a major way. I want to thank all of you for looking and listening, and understand that we're going to be here Monday through Thursday with this platform. We're going to be ready to talk about some things and hit some topics. I'm Archbishop Dr. Kifa Ben Israel, founder and chief apostle of Kingdom Building Institute and Ministry, saying that we're here to stay and we're here to get on your nerves. We're here to make some things happen. So thank you very much, and I'll see you on tomorrow.